Hello everyone, Marco Montemagno here, Digital Domination Summit 2013, and here with me a friend, a person that I really appreciate a lot and have a good opinion of what he is doing, Bill Tai. Hi Bill, thanks for being here.
Hey Marco, how are you today?
Everything great. I'm sure you better than me. Every time I think about you, I think that you are happier than me, because you do this Mai Tai amazing thing. I imagine you on kitesurf, meeting amazing people. So I always think, gosh, Bill is doing a dream life, And I want to explain for the people who doesn't know Mai Tai. Mai Tai is this amazing event you're organizing with Susie Mai, and is really taking over. Let's explain in 30 seconds. You can explain it better than me.
Yeah, actually on your point about, a happy life, I do feel incredibly lucky and fortunate to somehow have been able to combine my passions around both extreme sports and investing in startups, which may or may not sound like they're similar, but they are very similar, and combine them into the activity that Marco mentioned, which is Mai Tai. And 30 seconds, what Mai Tai is, it's a little bit of a cult of personality of really interesting people that live a very full life of passion. It's a combination of professional athletes in kiteboarding and really interesting entrepreneurs that have just gone for it every day in their lives and in many cases built great companies and sometimes failed along the way, but live to tell another tale.
Yeah, and is amazing also how a lot of deals come out from Mai Tai. So a lot of companies get investment and so on, which is one added value. But let's start from funding. You have legendary experience in funding. I say legendary always with a little bit of doubt, because legendary looks like something of the past, not something of the present. But you really invested in a lot of companies, both as an angel or VC, and you investing also in a lot of companies. So you have really seen a lot of moment in the startup life during these years. And the ecosystem is changing a lot. I would say in the last couple of years, these new platforms, AngelList, Funders Fund, and then Kickstarter, Indiegogo for other reasons, they started to open this world and is more transparent, more open to other possibilities. So I would like to start from this point. How different it is, and how different it is to invest today on one side and get money from the other side?
I'd say that what it all boils down to is the changing nature of the capital requirement to find product market fit. And that amount, because it has changed substantially over the last 20 years, has remade the opportunities for entrepreneurs in today's tech economy. And the changes are really driven by that. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the technology trends in Silicon Valley, I'd say we're, by my definition, we're on wave 4 of technology. And
okay.
Wave 1 was a wave that was basically the creation of the Lego building blocks that are used to build all the hardware systems today. So all like the semiconductor chips that then formed the basis for wave 2, when people took those Lego blocks and built PCs and routers and hubs and switches. It became the systems that became the infrastructure for wave 3, which was the telecommunications and data communications infrastructure that is the service providers, the data centers, the things that everything runs on. And now we're in wave 4. What wave 4 is basically the expression layer and the understanding of the data created by that expression layer. And if you look at all of the market value that has embodied itself in the large hits today, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, some rise and falls in Groupon and Zynga, what those companies really are today are user interfaces to data coming off the cloud. It's that simple. So there's 2 value points in the equation today that matter, and that changes all the time. But right now, it's great UI, UX, and understanding your data. So the 2 waves that have been important recently and will continue for a while will be user experience and the surface layer of the design, and then the big data part of collecting, processing, understanding, iterating on the data. And if you think about The capital requirement that was layer 1, 2, or 3, all of those layers were $50 million minimum to finish your product, to put it out on market to see if you had product market fit. Now all that stuff is in the cloud. And so the product market fit equation at the UI layer has turned, in some cases, to a few $100,000 from teenagers in London that get acquired by Yahoo.
Yeah.
Or companies like Tango that launched their product in a few $100,000 and got 1 million users in 10 days. The big data part, slightly more capital, but it's not 50, it's maybe 1 or 2. So what that has done, it's completely changed the nature of where the money can come from to still be effective at finding product market fit. In the period 20 years ago, you really, really required massive fund sizes, institutionally driven, to fund through the $50 to $100 million you needed over 5 years to reduce financing risk. Now, it's not so much about financing risk, it's about user adoption risk, and that product market fit at a few $100K to a few million can be borne by individuals. And I think the other thing that's happened is social networks and the freedom of information that flows across the web now has created a virtualization of expertise so that the small atom of experience that is directly relevant to the new startup of today can find that startup easily, and the market's very liquid to find a match between expertise, experience, capital, and the new idea. And that is what's enabled things like Kickstarter and the things you've mentioned.
Bill, in this scenario, I mean, where are you investing in this moment? I mean, you're investing only in a startup that has got those two, I mean, that is working inside these two sector, the design, user interface, and working with big data, or not? I mean, or you just, you have a different angle?
I think that's primarily, yes, that in an overarching description, those are the areas in which I am playing today.
Okay.
User interface and big data. And I'd say if there's a key component to all of the companies I invest in, they are companies that lower friction. And I think, I think Mark and I talked before this, but I think a lot of life, a lot of living a happy life and succeeding in life is living a life where you're basically reducing friction and making things easier for you and everybody else. And if you can do that consistently, generally speaking, I think your companies will work better, they'll be happier, and you'll be happier. And so I think a lot of the things that I've funded in the past couple of years, like say a TweetDeck, was a lower friction way to handle the flood of information out of Twitter.
Right.
Tango Video, it was 4 or 5 less clicks than using FaceTime on the iPhone, and now they have in 2 years 120 million users. Voxer, a push-to-talk solution that took away a lot of steps to opening a phone, going to that type of application. Now you just push a button and you talk, and your communication is right there.
But you invested also recently, I think, in the Lulu, the app that has got I think pivoting, and now is reviews of guys. So every girl go to do reviews of guys, I think. So
yes, it's sort of like a Hot or Not, if you remember the Web 1.0 days of Hot or Not.
Yeah, sure. Big success.
Yeah, so Lulu takes that a step further and allows women to rate men on a variety of parameters, including whether they're cheap or generous, whether they're good kissers or bad kissers, whether what their quote bangability factor is.
They lowering the friction with to get men in the end.
They have lowered the friction to information on people that matters. So I think, and it's been amazing to see the result when they launched in December at University of Florida. I think in a matter of 4 or 5 weeks, 40,000 girls got onto the system and rated 200,000 guys.
Unbelievable.
And that was one university, and that has now spread. If you could have a sort of a map of what a virus looks like going across the United States, you would see University of Florida, and then a little light up over University of Colorado, an explosion, and you see another viral seed over at Stanford and Berkeley and Booth. And I think they've done a great job just making information about people, while it is crowdsourced and subjective, they've made it easily accessible.
Right. And I wonder if there is a version for men, like that you rate women. Probably there is. I don't know.
Now, there isn't
I'm too old now, Bill. I don't know anymore these apps.
They don't provide that service, but there is something called Lulu Do.
Okay.
And because there are millions of men trying to get onto the system, this is how they've been rated. And the company was basically forced to create a separate entry portal that doesn't allow the men to rate women, but you can look yourself up to see how you have been rated.
Crazy.
And how many people have visited your profile and what they generally think of you if there are ratings left by.
Amazing. But from your experience, Bill, is not related with funding, but from all the companies and startups that you've seen during these years, why some startup achieve such impressive numbers very fast? Could you discover a kind of pattern or formula that they use to get this viral grow, or it's just random, or they just pick the right community? So Lulu talking to college, and college people has nothing to do all day, so they do reviews.
You said the key word, which is how do you create a community of users that has an interest or passion or drives value out of whatever the product or service is, that then makes them passionate about that product and spread the word because they love it. And so I'd say in all of the products that hit in the portfolio that I funded, the companies have created products that drive rabid, insane passion from a small community at the beginning that then starts to spread. And it works online, it works offline. I think that while I can't say that I thought proactively before about what the community would be like around Mai Tai, I learned a lot from it, because it was a very small group that was insanely passionate about a sport that I thought was a niche. Maybe it is still kind of a niche, but over time I think it's continued to grow. So I think in that offline case and in the online case, as I look at the usage and growth patterns at Tango and Boxer and Lululemon, all three of them, by the way, are top 20 today in the iPhone App Store in the social networking category. They're right next to each other. It's like 15, 17, 18, or 12, 13, 14. Every day they're right up there. I think they've all kind of learned from each other, and all of them have basically found a use case where there are people that are really, really engaged, and then they use their data science to understand that behavior and who that profile is and what they're doing with it, and they build on it. So I'd say it's a combination of identifying the right community, understanding the use case when there is something that lights a fuse, and then replicating that use case by understanding your data and feeding that back into the UI until you get an exposure.
I was a table tennis player, professional table tennis player when I was in university, 250 in the world, so a very bad table tennis player in the world, but in Italy I was top 3 players, something like that.
50 in the world out of millions and millions.
That's right up. Yeah, but it worked that only the team go to play, I don't know, European Championship or Championship. Otherwise, China would have 1 million players in the ranking. Anyway, the community of a table tennis, which is a niche sport, is so maniac. On YouTube there are videos of people watching all kind of table tennis match, translating Swedish documentary for it's crazy, and that's exactly what you say, because they're passionate about it. 2013. What's your suggestion to people launching a company and they need to raise money? When is the right moment to raise money? It's true that your idea doesn't matter and you just need traction, and in that moment you go to ask for money. There is here again a pattern that you discover, and you could say, okay, look, the right way to do is this one, or every time is different?
I think it depends on the stage of company, and I'd say while the venture funding industry, if you can call it an industry, continues to evolve every day. So, what I say now could be different 6 months from now, depending on the health of the financial markets, generally speaking, or not. Yes, it might get better, it might get worse. I'd say the key thing to think about is I segment the market now into probably 3 phases.
Okay.
One is kind of just the raw start. The second is finding product market fit. And the third is scaling capital. And I think what has happened today is that, generally speaking, the very first money is always the hardest, because you may have an idea, you probably don't have a product, you have a background of great success or not, or whatever your background is. And that first set of dollars that bring the credibility are all going to be likely from people you already know.
Okay.
Because I think it's pretty hard to approach someone, to convince someone on a raw idea. Now that may be the case for younger kids that haven't been out in the workplace yet. They may have to go to others, but it has been proven that people like that, if they're outstanding at something they did, they can raise money. So I think the first stage is, can you get enough to buy yourself credibility to get enough money to find the product market fit? And I think what you have to do there, I think people at that stage are really looking for someone with either it's a combination of brilliant idea, at least, and that's going to be subjective, and a feeling that the person can execute. So credibility that the person's going to get there. And you can show that in a number of ways. You can show that even through past track record and other things. For example, Alexandra Chong of Lulu Vice, she was a pro tennis player.
Okay.
She was not a coder.
I didn't know that.
She was a competitive athlete, and she had been a winner in other parts of her life. And it was enough for people to make a bet on her as a person. And that gave her enough money to do a seed to prove out the structural concept of the idea, show user interface, to a point where people could say, I understand what that product's going to be. And so the first stage is find your friends, find credible friends that have deep enough pockets that they will make a bet on you. The second stage is, how do I get enough money to deliver on a product to show its use case, even at a prototype phase, so the people that believe in that area will shift their focus from I believe in the person to I believe in the product.
Yeah.
And that's going to be probably a few $100,000 to $1 million, or maybe a little bit more. That's going to be likely the realm of angels. There are some venture funds that will do that, but I think generally speaking in that area, for every dollar you raise, you want more people cheering for you that are good.
Yeah.
So if you have people that know the space and can help you with their prior expertise and help spread the word, you try to get experts. I'll give you an example in that case. In a big data play, I put together a company called Treasure Data. And Treasure Data is a big data. It's lowered the friction to getting onto modern technology infrastructure called Hadoop in a certain format. And in that one, I put together an angel round around a couple of people. One was the creator of what today is the world's largest Hadoop user community, so the team had good technical cred. But we needed people that had business credibility as angels. And we got the 3 founders of Heroku. We got Ahmed Laraki, who had built the data infrastructure.
Great team.
Yeah, the CIO of Informatica. We got Jerry Yang, the founder of WebEx. So people like that would give that team, even though they had no deep business experience and no prior wins, people would say, great technology, great advisors, I'm willing to come in to fund product market fit. And then now that we found product market fit, have 2,100 customers on the system and have generated revenue. Now we're at a point where we need deeper pockets to scale the company and take what has been the first win and replicate that broadly. That's true of consumer internet. Like Lulu is just closing the round now because they found the model. It launched at the University of Florida. 40,000 girls, 100,000 guys, and they know that they can, through an ambassador program, plant seeds at other colleges and universities and other communities to make it go. And that's where I think you start to spend more capital because it's accretive to you, because you can put out $1 and get many, many more customers than you would have when you were developing.
Yeah, so you have customer acquisition strategy in place, and you know that you just need the capital to scale the business, and that's it. Very interesting.
That's where the venture funds come in today, because they're generally hundreds of millions of dollars. They need to have outcomes that are $1 billion in size. So if you haven't already hit the scaling point, sometimes they'll make a bet on the people, but they're really looking for, how do I get onto something with a lot of momentum that might be worth $1 billion so I can return multiples of my fund if I have several of them.
Yeah. And how do you think is right to pitch a VC today? I mean, a lot of talking about how to pitch, you know, and the demo day where company pitch, so they got this 12 slides, more or less, everyone say the same thing, or customer, the solution, the problem, blah, blah, blah. But in your experience, I mean, what's the best way to pitch an investor today with all these opportunities and all these different marketplace?
What you described for, say, like a Y Combinator or an Angel Pad or any of the developed incubators out there that already have a filtering process where they take thousands of applicants, shrink it down to tens of applicants, bake them with the teams and entrepreneurs for, you know, a period of months to develop a product, and then everyone shows up at a big amphitheater for the pitch day. It is very efficient, but it is a bit of a bake-off. And I think that type of funding model will work in some cases if people think the outcome is going to be very large, or they're just personally attracted to that space. I funded a couple companies that have come out of things like that. I funded Script out of Y Combinator. I funded ARC. And ARC.com, typical one, where high-profile team, super big idea to completely redo the way search is done. And so it lands in the realm of competing with Google and Facebook and Microsoft Bing, which is very hard. Yeah. But it's such a big idea that if it works, it could be large. So that turned out to be the largest seed ever out of Y Combinator history. It was more than $5 million as a seed. But I think what happens in that environment is that you end up having a bake-off mentality where people don't necessarily feel like they find something special, and they're more kind of momentum investing. Where I think if you're an entrepreneur that hasn't gone through the big funnel to then be in a group presentation and a bake-off, I think the best advice I've heard is when you are, if you tell people you're looking for advice, people will then be drawn to fund you. If you tell people you're out looking for funding, they'll want to give you advice. Yeah. I love it. I hope it's in Creative Commons, this phrase. I will always use it. Okay. Yeah, and I'll find the exact phrase, but I'll email it to you later. But I think it's true. I think what ends up happening is if entrepreneurs that I like or know or trust, or all of those, like and know and trust, say, hey, Bill, I'm thinking about something. Can I come talk to you because I just want your advice? My guard is a little lower. My guard is down. Right. And I'm interested in focusing on the person. I get engaged in the idea, and I start to feel maybe a little bit of pride of ownership of the relationship or the interesting. And I'm more inclined to feel like maybe I have something special that hasn't been overshot to 10,000 investors. Yeah. If somebody calls me with I'm raising money. Yeah, and with a standard template, it's not the same. Then I feel like then your guard is going to be up a little bit, and then you're always going to say, well, okay, so have 100 people looked at this and passed already? Yeah. Or, is it something that's stale in the market, or why is it not why is it not something special? And so I think I will often look at those if they come from credible, interesting people. Typically, if it is a credible and interesting person with a good product idea that's out raising money and it's being broadly shopped, and it hasn't been closed quickly, it's probably because of price.
Yeah.
So I think we're also in a market now where I think because information flows so freely, one of the things that I think is very true is the only way to make money on something is if it's controversial.
Okay.
Because if it's not controversial and everybody has already agreed that it's a great thing, then it becomes very fully priced. It's like Apple at 700.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Everybody says, "Oh,
Right.
I'm already in.
Yeah.
I'm there," and there's no marginal buyers to help drive it up higher. But if you happen to be the one person that thinks something's right and no one else thinks it can work, then you have a shot.
Yeah.
Because perception is not reality. When perception becomes reality, if it started with perception and reality are the same from the financial community, there's no upside. If it starts with perception is different than reality and the company grows into reality, if you were the only one thinking that, you're going to do really well.
Yeah.
So part of it is trying to find the controversial bets that if the world changes the way you think it's going to change, and that company is executed along that path and it works, then that's when you make money. And so I think as an investor and an entrepreneur, you want to position yourself like that. You want to explain to the investor why, if what you think, your view of the world, how things might unfold, how you're positioned to ride that set of waves. And if you find the investors and the individuals that believe the same picture that you believe, you'll have a shot.
Then there is the match. And also there is a percentage of risk for the investor, of course. And this is related also with kite surfing, I think. Probably is kite surfing is not like, I don't know, playing, I don't know how you say in English, when you have a big ball in the hand and you throw the ball with old people. I don't know the name.
Bowling?
Not bowling, the one that you play on the sand. Oh my gosh, my English is horrible. Okay, anyway, which is a very static sport. There's no risk at all. Kite surfing, you get a lot of risk and you have to understand where the wind is growing. So I see a lot of similitudes, no, in it.
It's a very multivariate. I'd say kiteboarding is a highly multivariate experience, and there are so many different things going on all at once that the probability of you having a perfect ride all the time is zero.
Right.
So you're basically constantly adjusting and constantly failing, and you stay with it because it's interesting, and you want to live for that moment where it all comes together, you're sailing through the air and flying, and you land exactly right, which doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's a very rewarding experience. And I think entrepreneurs, their DNA is the same. They're not attracted to sitting in a static environment in a big company where things are kind of moving slow and they're turning the crank, and they know that every time they turn the crank,
exactly,
away, something happens. I think that they want to be in an environment where there is no crank, and they have to figure out how to make the crank and what the crank is attached to, and it's just kind of a trying to define your own world, and more often than not, the solution doesn't exist, and there's basically lots of little failures every day.
Yeah.
But when something comes together and works, they feel the reward because they were part of the solution. And I think that is probably what defines the personality of both an entrepreneur and a kiteboarder.
Bill, we have to close. I just want to close with the word on Mai Tai. When is the next event for Mai Tai, and how is it possible to participate? How is it possible to contribute? Just a couple of information for people watching the video.
We have our main annual event on Maui, which is one of the islands of the state of Hawaii, out in the Pacific Ocean, and the what we call the center dates. Because center dates, meaning the organized activities, are Wednesday, May 15th to Saturday, May 18th. But because there's such a strong community around it, I think it's almost like a little Burning Man festival where people come out the week before and they spend the entire week to 10 days there bonding with the community and building things together. And there is a website called mytaiglobal.org that has a little bit of information on it. It's a limited set of information.
Okay.
But it does list some of the events, and there is an email address. You can email info@maitaiglobal.org to learn more about any of them. We're following that up 2 weeks or it's a week and a half later with a second Mai Tai Necker Island. We did our inaugural Mai Tai with Richard Branson on his island in the BVI in January, and he had such a delightful time with the very interesting and experimentative kiteboarding entrepreneurs that came out in January that he really just wanted us to come back.
Amazing.
So we carved out another week of his calendar, week of May 24th and May 31st. And there is some information on the first one. If you do a Google search on Virgin Blog,
all right,
Necker Island, there'll be 2 articles that were authored by Richard Branson describing the experience and the people.
Great.
So that one's in May, and then there'll be a few more later in the year to see on the Mai Tai site.
And also recently I read an article that say Mai Tai will be the next TED, which is for me a great compliment because I mean it's TED at the moment is #1 conference in the amazing numbers, by the way, and so really good luck, Bill. Thank you so much. We went long, but really I wanted to hear all your tips and suggestions, and good luck for everything.
Well, thank you, Marco. Delighted to be part of this.